Many clients ask me about the difference and advantages and disadvantages of owning a new home versus buying a pre-existing home, or a resale home, we would call that in the real estate market. So that's what we're going to talk about today, the difference between buying an existing house versus buying new construction. So what are the differences and what are the advantages and disadvantages? Let's talk about it today. I connect with people just like you every day to help them discover where to live and invest in real estate and sell property for top dollar when the time is just right for them. My name is Leif Jacobson. I'm an ex-cop turned realtor, also known as Safe Leif. If you're new to this channel, subscribe so you're first to learn about Colorado real estate. And in this case, it's really applicable to any state as far as the concepts we're talking about today. So my contact information is below. I'm really excited to hear from you. Reach out by text, call, or email after this video. I'd love to connect with you, or book a calendar event and I'll reach out to you, whatever works best. So today we're covering the differences between existing homes and new construction homes. And there are several advantages and disadvantages and stuff that we'll cover here today. And so some of those, basically new construction is a house would seem simple, but let's just be clear, a house that no one has ever lived in as far as a resident or an owner. So that can be a house that's finished with a builder and is waiting to sell. That can be a house that doesn't exist yet, that you're going to build through a custom builder on a piece of property that you purchase and or the builder owns, and you're going to move forward. So new construction can take various forms. We'll cover some of that in this video. An existing home or a pre-sale or a resale home is one that somebody has lived in before and you're buying it from them. So we'll talk about some nuances and other ins and outs today. It's not inherently a right or wrong or a good or bad. It depends on you, your goals, your priorities, and nuances in your life. So let's talk about all of the above. New construction homes in Colorado Springs, where I'm at actually, comprise about 10% of the home sales on a monthly basis in the multiple listing service market that we're in. So 90% of the homes are resale homes that have already existed and already had an owner who is selling. Existing home or a resale home can be less expensive in general than a new build for a couple different reasons. So for one reason, it is less expensive and less cost of purchase and can be a greater value is because there are incidental expenses when you're buying a brand new house that doesn't have some of those nuances, especially like landscaping, fencing, stuff like that can add up to thousands or tens of thousands of dollars versus a already existing home will already have those things and you don't need to spend that kind of money. So a lot of people discount that, but that can add up to actually significant expenses just to outfit houses with the incidentals that are necessary to live in it. Financing a pre-existing home with a mortgage loan is pretty similar to what you'll do with a newer house. If you have one that a builder's already built, it already exists, and you're getting a mortgage loan for it, and it's already completed, then you're good to go as far as getting an existing mortgage for a property that's ready to occupy. If you're going the custom build route, it's a little bit different as far as getting a hold of a lot, generally you're purchasing, or getting a loan on property you're going to purchase to then design and build the house that you want to have built. So that's different. The easiest way to do that is if you can have cash to pay for the lot. It's actually very difficult in comparison to a mortgage loan. It's difficult to get a loan to purchase property. You're not doing 15, 20, 25% down in general. You're probably into 50% down minimum because raw land that doesn't have improvements or a structure yet is one of the greatest risks as far as a bank or lending entity to lend on. And traditionally, you can't get a mortgage for that. It would just be more of a portfolio loan or kind of an individual loan product where you would buy land with. And it's high risk because they want you occupying that property as fast as possible in order to have you motivated to keep it if things went poorly in your life, if you lost your job, if you couldn't make payments on it. Raw land is one of the first things that people will walk away from because they don't live there and they don't occupy it. So they want to minimize the time and increase the amount of money you put down. If you're doing a loan on vacant land, they want to minimize the time where you're not occupying it, i.e. you may be required to build within 12 months is pretty typical for a raw land loan. So just some of the ins and outs there of buying property. Best case scenario is you'd buy that cash And then you'd get a construction loan, which is different than a mortgage loan. Construction loan is just, as it says, for the process of construction to build the house. And then as soon as construction is done, you have certificate of occupancy, you would then get a separate loan, the mortgage loan, which is typically a 30-year fixed rate loan for the house itself. But you can't get a mortgage loan for a house that actually doesn't exist. And a lot of people don't know that. And there's costs associated during a construction loan process, like you're paying course of construction interest every month as you're building for the improvements that you've made. As the foundation goes up and the framing, you're paying as you go every month during an 8 or 12 month construction process, which is not uncommon as far as a time frame. You're paying installments on the interest for the materials you've used throughout the process of the construction loan, and then you convert it to a mortgage in the end once it's complete. Generally, the custom build process, where you're getting a hold of a lot, whether you're buying that yourself or if some custom builders will buy groups of lots and then they'll sell it to you. And sometimes they can package that in so you don't just have to get a separate loan. You may be able to package that in with the builder. But if you're getting your own piece of land and then having a custom builder build on it for you, generally that's not the most cost-effective way to go, to be totally honest. It totally depends on the builder, depends on the land, depends on the deal, of course. But in general, as a generalization, it's not the most cost-effective way, but it is the most effective way to get everything that you want because you're designing it literally from the ground up. When you're doing new construction, whether that's a mass builder or a custom builder, you're at the mercy of their schedule and they're at the mercy of subcontractors and their availability, as well as weather issues. And so some things can't be done. Like you can't paint when it's 14 degrees outside. And so it snowballs a little bit. You have a 2-week delay on something, then pushes, 4 other contractors or 7 other contractors back another week or 2 or 3. So it can really increase exponentially as far as the time frame that it takes and the delays that are caused when you're in a new construction phase. And the contrast, of course, to that is a pre-existing home. You have certificate of occupancy on the property. There's nothing up in the air. And so really the only question as far as your mortgage and the timing on your lender, as far as how fast you can close. A closing can actually happen very quickly operationally. If it wasn't for lending, like if you have cash and you're doing a cash deal, you can close within, 1 or 2 or 3 days. So really the process of 30 or 45 days to close a house is typically reliant on the lender and how long it takes for the title company to do their thing, for the lending piece to do their thing and line up other parts and pieces in order to secure the mortgage loan to lend, hundreds, thousands, or millions of dollars to purchase a property. Lots of folks want to buy new construction because they don't want to go through the process of renovations. They want all the new, and who doesn't want nice, gorgeous, new, and not have to renovate or rebuild things later? So I totally get that. So that's a huge part of the people that want to buy new construction. They also want to be able to design things themselves. If you're going the full custom route, obviously you can design it any way you want. Not everybody wants to fully design, as in moving walls and changing the interior of the footprint of the structure to be absolutely custom. A lot of people just like to be able to pick the finishes, which really determine how the house feels. So the color and type of flooring, color and type of countertops, the color of the walls. Some people want greater energy efficiency as well. That can be a component. Newer houses generally are more energy efficient, and so that's a big deal to some people. That makes a big difference in your monthly payments as far as utilities. So that's important to some folks. So people want modern style in houses, and that's why part of the reason that they're wanting to do a newer construction house is because it won't have the kind of the old brass fixtures and, choppy walls and, little boxed in kitchens with a window into the living room, right? You don't see that anymore. We do great rooms now where the kitchen is open to the rest of the house. Well, they didn't used to do that. So there's lots of dozens of nuances like that for why people buy or tend to buy new construction. Another advantage to newer neighborhoods is the amenities and kind of ambiance that comes with it. Neighborhoods are more intentionally designed nowadays, or public utility districts, you could call them, which is where a developer comes in and develops property into a community. So the walking trails and recreation centers and the amenities that come with that in a neighborhood are super attractive to people. That's one draw to a newer neighborhood. Another advantage to new construction is that typically new construction homes are under warranty, and even the systems and accoutrements and structure are all under warranty, as well as appliances and things like that. So the appliances will have warranties from the manufacturer, but builders oftentimes will warranty a house for 5 or 10 years as far as the structural integrity of the house, and so you're covered for a longer period of time as far as you not having to repair anything if any of those systems don't go well or any of the systems fail, then they're covered under warranty. Homeowner associations, HOAs, are another component of newer neighborhoods. Almost 82% of the homes in Colorado Springs that are new builds are in a homeowner association neighborhood, which is a covenant protected neighborhood. And with an organization, the homeowners organization, to manage and enforce those covenants. So that can be an advantage to people. It can also be a disadvantage to people. Some people hate HOAs, other people love them. So in general, it can keep a neighborhood looking nicer over time, so you don't have junk vehicles in people's yards and somebody wanted to paint some crazy color. That generally doesn't do well for the value of the properties in the neighborhood, and it's also just annoying to look at in general when people do that. So there's a good intent, and kind of the spirit behind HOAs is fabulous, but some of them go overboard. You know, when you're getting a letter because your garbage cans are a foot off from where they should be on the street as far as in front of your house, HOAs can be really invasive, and that's where people have had many negative connotations and negative experiences with HOAs. So the intent is good, but like anything, when people mean well with an entity up front, it can turn very poor on the back end depending on how it's managed. Here's some of the disadvantages of buying a new home. Like we talked about earlier, is the time frame. You are at the mercy of the builder, and they're at the mercy of their subcontractors and people they utilize in order to complete the homes, and you can't control whether that house is done or not. And if you have months or weeks or months of a delay, you can't control that. It's just not done, and you may be in a living situation, whether it's a temporary or a short-term rental, an Airbnb or something like that, where you're staying, can get very expensive and frustrating when the house that you're supposed to be moving into 2.5 months ago is not done yet. So that can be a significant disadvantage and a perceived risk as far as financial risk and logistical risk for you to be able to move in on time. A lot of people who've never landscaped before don't understand how expensive landscaping can be. A lot of spec builders will do landscaping in the front of the house, but most will leave the backyard up to you. Some, you'll be able to landscape both, and they won't do any landscaping at all. You can easily spend tens and tens of thousands of dollars for landscaping. A pretty simple yard actually can be $20,000 or $30,000 cash for landscaping, and that's doing something pretty simple. On that same vein, landscaping as far as a neighborhood or on a macro scale feels very different when you're in a newer neighborhood without any big trees. Even the parks, feel kind of flat and without a large landscaping. A lot of trees can take 20, 30, 40 years to be fully grown. So it takes a neighborhood seasoning over decades in order to feel like there's full-grown foliage and trees, and kind of the ambiance is very different on a new neighborhood. So yes, it's nicer and newer as far as the structures, but you're not going to have 50-foot trees in a brand new park. So that's one compromise for folks if they want to be in a neighborhood that has foliage and kind of has that ambiance of that atmosphere. You might not want to be in a brand new neighborhood. When you also move into a neighborhood that has new construction going on, a lot of people are frustrated by the sound and chaos of new construction around them. So if you're going to be going into a new neighborhood, there's more construction going on around you, don't be frustrated that that's going on because your house was just before theirs. Newer neighborhoods and newer homes can also have higher tax rates, so you got to be ready for that as well. The nicer the amenity is, or the thing and the possession that you have, the higher the cost of maintenance and cost of taxes in general are for those things. So keep that in mind. Location is another thing to consider, and that's important for real estate. We've all heard the term location, location, location is the first consideration in real estate. And in order to get the nice new house that you want in a newer neighborhood, you might have to drive further. So generally there's expansion as far as most cities, just like with Colorado Springs, to the north and to the northeast is where the expansion is going. So you might have to drive a little further though in order to be in a nicer, newer neighborhood. So keep that in mind. Also with newer neighborhoods, builders are figuring out all the time, and developers really are figuring out how to cram more houses into a small amount of space. And so they're putting houses, as we all know and we all see, houses are closer and closer together all the time, and the lots are smaller because there's more dense population in these neighborhoods. Everybody likes that though. Not everybody likes smaller lots and people crammed into a smaller space. So keep that in mind. Generally, the newer the neighborhood, the smaller the lot size. As a side note, one of the most common questions I get is, do I need to use a realtor when buying a new construction home, when it's not a resale home? And you don't have to, but there are huge benefits in doing that. And I'll cover a couple of those here. I actually did a whole video on that just a few months ago, so go take a look at that as well. Part of the advantage to using a realtor when you're buying a new construction home is that your best interest is served. When I'm serving you in a new construction buy, I'm serving your best interest, whereas I'm not saying this is malicious, but it is human nature to serve our own best interest, unless you're trained as a fiduciary like me to serve a client that way. Builders and sellers of homes who are builders are generally looking out for their own efficiency and for their own benefit and for their own advantage. So it pays to have a realtor representing you and your best interest to keep the builder respectfully accountable to make sure that they're taking care of everything they should take care of. I can also advocate for you by getting other things included that you may not be able to get included yourself. I have relationships with a lot of the builders and can kind of pit them respectfully against each other a little bit, reference what others are including and providing, which you may not be aware of. So you may be able to get an advantage of appliances included, which can be thousands of dollars, and not even know that's something you can even ask for. And there are lots of advantages, of course, to buying existing or pre-existing homes in the neighborhood and in the house, because you know what you're going to get because it already exists. Bird in the hand is the phrase as far as having what you already are going to pay for, having already existed in your rec centers or in the house itself, is different than having somebody claiming they're going to build it for you and hoping that they're going to follow through with that. Existing homes can have bigger yards like we talked about versus the newer neighborhoods with smaller lots where they're always trying to cram more on less space. There's actually something to be said regarding settling and shifting soil as far as settling over time. So there's something to be said for a house kind of standing the test of time that's been around for years or decades. Any movement that's going to happen has already moved, and you kind of have a more sure thing. When you build a new house, making sure that the dirt and soil is compacted right for the foundation, you can't know how that's going to go. You have an existing property, an existing structure that has stood the test of time, you have less risk. Some disadvantages of buying existing homes are the antithesis of what we've talked about a few ways since, which can be just super dated in the layout, design, and or finishes of the property. The newer the house is, the less chance you'll have to upgrade things in order to get top dollar and make it appealing to what a buyer is going to like at that time, because people will like different things 10 and 15 and 20 years from now than they're liking today. Appliances and systems need to be replaced over time. So the appliances of a house are good for about 10 years in general for appliances. And the same with the systems as far as water heater, HVAC, cooling systems. Things degrade over time, and those are costs in order to maintain those and replace those over time. So that's a consideration and can be a disadvantage to buying an older house. We talked about utility costs as well, whether that's the efficiency and energy efficiency of the windows, whether that's the piping, whether that's the heating system in the house. Newer houses are generally more efficient. So those are some of the goods and bads, ins and outs. I know it's kind of all over the place, but I just wanted to give you the 40,000 foot view and the contrast between buying existing houses or resale houses and new construction. Hopefully this was helpful. If you think of a bunch of other nuances that I missed, let me know. I'd love to have you comment below and give me some feedback, reference this video, or if you think of another video you'd like to see or something else you'd like me to cover, I'd like to hear from you. Shoot me a text, call, or email. Reach out to me in the comments below. I'm excited to connect with you, and I'll see you on the next video.